he met another climber named Lila. She was strong, with bright eyes and a determination that matched his own. They quickly struck up a conversation. Lila shared her dreams of reaching the summit and the thrill that came with each climb. "Have you ever climbed this mountain before?" Lila asked, her breath visible in the cold air. "No, but I feel ready," Kai replied confidently. They decided to team up for the climb. As they continued, they supported each other through the challenges. But the climb grew harder with each passing hour. The path became steep and slippery with loose rocks, and soon the sun sank behind the mountain, leaving only a chill in the air. "Let's find a place to rest," Lila suggested, shivering slightly. They found a small ledge to camp for the night, wrapping themselves in warm blankets. As they sat together around a small cook stove, Lila began to share stories of her past. She spoke of her family and the hardships they faced. As Kai listened, he felt a bond growing between them. "I climb not just for myself," Lila said softly, "but for everyone who can't." The next day, they continued their climb, but the weather took a turn for the worse. Heavy clouds gathered overhead, and the wind howled like a wild beast. Kai and Lila pressed on, but soon the storms rolled in, combining rain and sleet to form icy patches on the rocks. "I can't go on like this," Kai shouted over the noise of the wind. "It's too dangerous." Lila hesitated, but then looked into Kai's eyes. "We can't give up now. We have to find shelter. It's about sticking together." With Lila's encouragement, they searched for shelter among the rocks. They huddled close, wrapped in their blankets, listening to the storm rage outside. Hours passed, and the storm finally began to calm. Kai felt a mix of fear and hope. He didn't want to turn back, yet the mountains seemed to fight against them. On the third day, the sun returned, shining brightly, almost mocking their fears from the day before. The snow glimmered, and their spirits lifted. Kai and Lila continued their climb, finding a rhythm in their movements. They talked, shared dreams, and motivated each other. As they reached a crucial point, an enormous ledge appeared before them with a steep cliff on one side. "This is it," Lila said, looking down nervously. "We have to go around it." Kai took a deep breath. "We can do this, just one step at a time." With great caution, they maneuvered their way around the ledge. Just as they thought they had succeeded, Lila slipped on a patch of ice. "Kai!" she shouted, but before he could react, she lost her balance and fell, grabbing onto a rocky outcrop for dear life. Kai's heart raced as he rushed forward. "Hold on!" he yelled, stretching his hand out to her. With all his strength, he pulled her back up. Together, they gasped for breath, relief washing over them. "Thank you, I thought," Lila began, but Kai interrupted. "Don't mention it. We're in this together," he replied. Just then, they heard a loud crack. A large piece of ice fell from above, landing dangerously close to them. "We need to move," Kai urged, scanning the area for a safer route. Their adrenaline fueled them, and as they navigated away from danger, they felt the weight of the mountain pressing down. Hours passed, and the climb seemed never-ending. Just when they thought it was hopeless, they spotted a small hut nestled against the rock, a sanctuary among the perilous heights. They rushed inside, greeted with warm air and faint light coming from a single oil lamp. Inside, they discovered supplies left by past climbers, warm soup, blankets, and even some climbing gear. Kai felt a sense of relief wash over him. "This is amazing!" Lila exclaimed, her eyes shining with gratitude. They warmed up, sharing the soup while discussing their dreams of reaching the peak. Yet, as night fell, doubts resurfaced. "What if we fail?" Lila said quietly, her confidence wavering. Kai placed a hand on her shoulder. "We won't fail as long as we keep trying. It's the journey that counts," he reminded her, echoing Arlo's words. After resting, they set out again in the early morning light. The snow reflected the sun, creating a dazzling sight. Each step now felt heavier, but they encouraged each other to keep going. They were exhausted, but with determination, they moved on. Finally, after days of battling nature's wrath, they reached the final ridge. Standing at the edge, the peak loomed above them, breathtaking in its glory. "We did it," Kai whispered, unable to believe their eyes. With new strength, they climbed the last few feet to the summit and collapsed onto the snow, laughter escaping their lips. The feeling of achievement flooded over them. The beauty of the world spread out beneath them was beyond anything they had imagined. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in colors of orange and pink, Kai turned to Lila. "We may not have climbed this mountain alone, but together we reached the top." Lila smiled broadly. "And remember, the climb was just as important as the peak." Together they stood at the pinnacle, united by their journey and the resolve to face whatever lay ahead. Herb story: The Mountain Climber's Resolve. Original type. At the foot of Mount Cinder, a young climber named Kai stood, his eyes fixed on the peak that was more often lost in the clouds than visible. Locals called it the throat of the world, a testament to its towering height and the violent storms that frequently encircled it. Stories of failed attempts and broken dreams clung to the mountain like the stubborn ice that never melted. Many had tried, but few had returned, and none had ever reached the summit. But Kai wasn't like the others. He was wiry and lean, hardened by years of training in the foothills. His eyes, the color of slate, held a quiet determination that belied his young age. Every morning, as the first sliver of dawn touched the horizon, he laced up his worn boots, adjusted the straps of his heavy pack, and began his ascent. The first few days were deceptively easy. The trail was well worn, a gentle incline that wound through a forest of ancient pines. Birds sang, and the air was crisp and clean. Kai moved with a steady rhythm, his mind focused on the task ahead. He passed the abandoned camps of previous climbers, their tents ripped and torn, their supplies scattered, grim reminders of the mountain's unforgiving nature. On the fourth day, the landscape began to change. The trees thinned, replaced by jagged rocks and windswept scrub. The trail steepened, and Kai found himself scrambling over boulders, his muscles burning with exertion. The weather turned, too. A cold wind began to howl, carrying with it stinging sleet that plastered his face and froze his fingers. He met his first challenge, a sheer rock face that rose hundreds of feet, offering only a few precarious handholds. He spent hours carefully picking his way up, his body pressed against the cold stone, the wind threatening to rip him from his precarious perch. Just as his strength began to fail, he reached a small ledge and collapsed, his chest heaving, his limbs trembling. As he rested, huddled against the rock, he saw someone descending towards him. It was an old woman, her face etched with wrinkles, her eyes bright and knowing. She moved with a surprising agility, her boots finding purchase on the treacherous terrain. "You're Kai, aren't you?" she said, her voice raspy but strong. Kai nodded, surprised. "How did you know?" "Word travels," she said with a wry smile. "They say you're trying to climb the throat of the world." "I am," Kai replied, his voice firm. The old woman studied him for a moment, her gaze piercing. "This mountain takes more than just strength," she said. "It takes resolve, patience, and respect. Have you got those things, young man?" "I think so," Kai said. "I'm prepared to give it everything I have." "Good," the woman said. "But remember this, the mountain doesn't care about your ambitions. It will test you, break you, and try to turn you back. The only way to succeed is to listen to it, to learn from it, and to never give up." She then gave him a small, intricately carved wooden charm, which she said would protect him from harm and guide him on his journey. After their conversation, she continued her descent, leaving Kai alone once more. He looked at the charm, its smooth surface warm against his cold fingers. He felt a renewed sense of determination, a belief that he could overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few days were the hardest yet. The climb became steeper, the weather more severe. Snow began to fall, blanketing the mountain in a thick layer of white. Kai had to use ropes and ice axes to navigate the treacherous slopes. He battled blizzards, freezing temperatures, and exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm him. Twice, he considered turning back. The summit seemed impossibly far away, hidden behind a wall of ice and snow. His body ached, his mind was clouded with doubt, and he missed the warmth of his home. But each time, he remembered the old woman's words. The mountain will test you, break you, and try to turn you back. He knew that giving up would be the easiest thing to do, but it would also be the biggest regret of his life. He wasn't alone on the mountain, however. One evening, as he was setting up camp in a small ice cave, he heard a faint sound. He cautiously ventured outside, his ice axe raised, and saw a figure huddled against a rock. It was a young woman, no older than himself, her face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with fear. "Are you all right?" Kai asked, approaching her cautiously. "I'm lost," she said, her voice trembling. "I got separated from my group during the storm. I don't know where to go." Kai helped her into his camp, gave her warm food and drink, and wrapped her in his sleeping bag. Her name was Lena, and she was a researcher studying the effects of climate change on the mountain's glaciers. She had been caught in the sudden blizzard and lost her way. Together, Kai and Lena continued the ascent. Lena, despite her initial fear, proved to be a strong and capable climber. She had a deep knowledge of the mountain's ecology and was able to identify safe routes and potential hazards. Kai, in turn, provided the physical strength and determination that they both needed to keep going. They faced many challenges together. They crossed crevasses on makeshift bridges of ice, they scaled vertical walls of rock, and they endured freezing nights huddled together in their tents, listening to the wind howl outside. They shared stories, dreams, and fears, and formed a bond that only those who have faced death together can understand. Finally, after weeks of relentless climbing, they reached the summit. As they stood on the highest point of the throat of the world, they were greeted by a breathtaking sight. The clouds parted, revealing a panorama of snow-capped peaks stretching as far as the eye could see. The sun shone brightly, bathing the landscape in a golden light. They had done it. They had conquered the mountain that had defeated so many others. They had faced their fears, overcome their doubts, and pushed themselves to the limit. They had learned that the true reward wasn't the summit itself, but the journey, the struggle, and the camaraderie they had shared along the way. They spent only a few moments at the top, savoring the view and taking pictures. The weather was unpredictable, and they knew they had to start their descent before another storm rolled in. As they began to climb down, Kai looked back at the summit one last time. He felt a sense of gratitude, not only for the mountain, but also for the people who had helped him along the way, his mentor, the old woman, and especially Lena. The descent was just as challenging as the ascent, but they faced it together, their spirits buoyed by their success. They arrived back at the foot of the mountain, exhausted but triumphant. They had proven that with enough resolve, patience, and teamwork, anything is possible. As they parted ways, Kai knew that he would never forget his experience on the throat of the world. It had changed him in ways he couldn't yet understand. He had learned the importance of perseverance, the power of friendship, and the value of respecting nature. He knew that he would continue to climb mountains, both literally and figuratively, for the rest of his life. And he knew that he would always carry with him the memory of his climb, the old woman's charm, and the lessons he had learned on the throat of the world. At the foot of a towering mountain, a young climber named Kai stared up at the peak, barely visible in the swirling mist. For years, stories spread about the mountain's unclimbable heights, its violent storms, and its treacherous cliffs. Most climbers gave up after the first few days, but Kai wasn't like them. Every morning, he laced up his boots, tightened the straps on his pack, and set off with determination to conquer the mountain that had claimed so many before him. On the first day, Kai met another climber named Anya. She was strong and confident, and they soon fell into an easy friendship. Anya had climbed many mountains, but this one was different. "It's more than just a climb," she told Kai as they trekked together. "It's a test of our will." The words sunk deep into Kai's heart. Day by day, they faced the mountain's challenges together. As they climbed higher, the air grew thin, and the temperature dropped. The fresh, crisp air turned icy, and soon snow began to swirl around them. Kai and Anya often huddled together to share stories, keeping each other's spirits up. They talked about their dreams and what lay beyond the mountain. Anya hoped to climb the highest peaks in the world, while Kai wanted to prove to himself that he could accomplish anything he set his mind to. On the fifth day, they reached a narrow ledge. The path was barely visible under layers of snow and ice. Anya paused, looking down at the sheer drop below. "This is where many give up," she said, her voice steady. "But remember, it's not the peak that matters, it's the climb." With those words in mind, they pressed on. The climb grew steeper, and soon the wind howled like a wild beast. It whipped through their clothes, sending chills down their spines. Kai found himself struggling, his muscles burned, and his breath came in shallow gasps. The cold wind sliced through him, making him feel like he was carrying a mountain on his back.